And of course, for that, we're joined once again in studio by Mia Malan. She's the editor-in-chief at the Bhekisisa Center for Health Journalism. And Mia, it's always great having you in studio. There's a lot to get through for this segment. Get us a sense of what we're talking about.
So we're going to find out how HIV prevention pills work and injections that you can use to prevent yourself from getting infected. We'll hear where you can find them and exactly how they work. We'll also find out from Doctors Without Borders why they think J&J has been really slow in delivering our COVID vaccines here in South Africa. And we will break down the new COVID variant in a way that you can explain it to your granny here in studio.
Which is incredibly helpful. I hope my granny is watching because this is some pretty important information. But speaking about variants, which of them have we detected in South Africa and what do we know about them?
So there are many, many variants, and many of those we never hear about because viruses change all the time, and the variants we do hear about are the ones that become dominant. So in easy language, they're the ones that are strong enough to survive and to then take over. And if we look at South Africa, each wave has been dominated by a different variant. So in the first wave, you can see here, it was dominated by the Wuhan variant. And Wuhan, because that is the Chinese city where the original form of the virus was first detected. And also a variant called C.1, which scientists think is the parent of the new variant C.1.2 that we now have in South Africa. And in the second wave, we had the Beta variant that dominated our wave. And that variant took over from the original variant because it spread faster. It was more infectious and it also was able to escape immunity. So it made some vaccines work a little bit less well. And now we have the Delta variant, which is the most transmissible form of the variant we know of, and which is still currently the dominant variant, not the new variant, but Delta is still most of the cases in South Africa.
Right. You made mention of the C1 variant. In the past couple of days, the C.1.2 variant has been taken over headlines. It's the new mutation, if you like, that we've discovered in South Africa. What do we know about it and its prevalence?
So we know that it's been detected in all provinces in South Africa. It was first detected in May in Gauteng and in Mpumalanga. And we also know that it has since spread to some other countries, for instance, China. And here in Africa, it's also spread to Botswana and to Mauritius and European countries such as Portugal and Switzerland. But important to note that it's more common in South Africa. It's often single or just one or two cases in the other countries. So scientists think that the variant was first discovered here, and then it was South African travelers who traveled to other countries and took it there. So if you look at what is dominant, as I mentioned, the Delta variant is still dominant in South Africa. More than 90% of cases are still Delta in South Africa. We've got very little Beta left, only 2%. None of Alpha. Alpha is a variant that was first discovered in the United Kingdom and that we had a little bit of in the second wave of our COVID. And then C.1.2, only 2.5% of cases so far in South Africa, so still in very small proportions, and we don't yet know how fast it will spread.
Fascinating. We started out with the Beta variant essentially being dominant. Things then changed when Delta came onto the playing field, for lack of a better term. What's the likelihood that the C.1.2 variant will effectively take over infections in our country?
So we really just don't know yet.
Yeah.
What will give it the edge is if it becomes more transmissible than the Delta variant, because then it will take over, it will spread faster, and it will infect more people. But we will have to wait and see. We don't have that information yet. What we also don't yet know is what kind of effect it will have on vaccines. So will it make vaccines work a little bit less well? We will know that data soon. South African scientists are busy conducting lab tests. They're taking blood from people who have been vaccinated and also who have had COVID, and they look at the antibodies in that blood and see how well those antibodies perform against the new variant. So if it neutralizes the variant or if it kills it, basically. So we will still have to wait and see for that. But what we do know is that no variant in the past has been able to escape by much, in other words, to produce by much the protection that vaccines provide against serious COVID. So the type of COVID that makes you end up in hospital, in an ICU, or that leads to death. And scientists say they don't think that the new variant will have properties that will be able to escape protection against serious illness. So mostly when vaccines started to work less well because of variants, it's mostly been that protection against milder forms of COVID that has been affected. So when people who have been vaccinated get infected with COVID, they're likely to have a mild form of COVID compared to unvaccinated people that are likely to be more likely to end up in hospital or die of COVID.
Yeah, so in other words, with all the variants we're seeing, luckily we're still in a space where the vaccines at our disposal are still effective enough. That's probably worth considering.